Hello again and welcome back to the marketplace. Let's now settle for the very first story. The Auditor General, Daniel Domelovo, has warned that his office will surcharge heads of institutions that fail to get rid of ghost names on their payroll. According to the Auditor General, this will help check the abuse and wastage of funds within the public sector. Speaking to Joy Business, the Auditor General said his office has already begun a process of auditing the payroll of all government institutions. There's more in this report.
In 2017, an amount of 443 million Ghana cedis was saved by government following the Finance Ministry's suspension of salary payments to some 26,589 ghost workers after a payroll audit of government agencies. Despite such an action, the issue of ghost names continues to remain a challenge. Presently, government has declared its resolve to end the menace. Speaking to Joy Business, the Auditor General, Daniel Domelovo, said his office is currently undertaking another payroll audit and will surcharge heads of institutions with ghost names on their books.
We've reached a point where we have issued what we call the management letters, which carry our observations to say when we came to your institution or reviewed your institution, maybe 20 people are supposed to be on pension, they are above the statutory age, or they have resigned and they are still on the payroll. So answer. And we are waiting for them to answer because the law gives them 30 days to provide the answer. When these answers come and they are not satisfactory, then we are going to go ahead to disallow the existence of those people on the payroll and surcharge the head of institutions who fail to remove the people from the payroll. And again, of course, let me be very honest with you. It's painful to me to see people as young as 25, 30 years with degree, masters, etc., not getting job to do. And the deadwoods don't want to go. People are above 60 years. They keep bringing contract and fake certificates to remain at post. Why? It is part of the abuse, part of the corruption which we must address.
The auditor has further urged that all internal auditors in the public sector must be well resourced to carry out their duties effectively.
They have been rendered ineffective, and this is because their independence has been compromised. The person who they are checking on is the very person who employed them, who is supposed to take care of their welfare, their growth and everything. So all I'm saying is that we should take a cue from the corporate world, where now internal audit is being our source. So let's pull all our internal auditors together under the agency, away from the spending officers, but they'll still do the same and render the same service. But then they are now independent. Not only that, their professional development can also be taken care of. Some people say they are internal auditors. You ask them what standard you use, they don't even know that there are any standards for auditing. So they can go for training, they can be supervised to ensure that they do quality work. And that the essence of that is the timeliness of preventing the abuse of public funds.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
Now, former Finance Minister Seth Terkper wants the NPP government to concentrate on repayment of the country's total debt, and as well as implementing some measures introduced during the Mahama administration to do that. He, for instance, asked government not to stifle the sinking fund in order to raise adequate resources for debt repayment. He says there is a fear that Ghana could reach debt unsustainability if the trend of borrowing continues.
All of them will constitute pure borrowing. There are variations in the debt stock as a result of exchange rates developments. So, for instance, if you are looking at the CD version of the public debt, then you have to convert the external debt, assuming they are denominated in.
I think that the debt situation is getting alarming, and one other point that we have to remember: end of 2016, the point was made that we were borrowing too much. We were, yes, in fairness, we were at risk of debt distress, but we kept pointing out that look, the rate of borrowing is going down, right? And we kept telling the fund and others, it's going down. Now it's going up. So we were optimistic that with 2 oil fields and with more sinking fund, in fact, we had done a table. I can show it to you just to prove the point. We had done a table up to 2030. We showed that with only 1 oil field, we were going to get 300 million, US dollars from the sinking fund to retire our debt, which, because of what we call soft amortization, apart from 2023, has an annual redemption rate of $333 million US dollars, which means about 75%, would have been secured in terms of redemption. Never happened, right? And so you can imagine if we had continued, using a sinking fund for those buybacks and the redemption, because it's now 3 oil firms. So despite single spine, despite yield schools, despite oil prices going down, right, we set up a sinking fund. And we said, let's change the way we did. We borrowed from the World Bank and bundled all the treasury bills, or most of the treasury bills that we had just been refinancing, and we did the first refinancing, 10 to 15 years. We were criticized. Remember, they said you don't borrow, to pay
debt. Yeah.
And secondly, even as the minister said in Parliament, just recently after the bond was issued, that we issued that bond at 10.75. Yes, the markets were tough at the time. But what was the alternative? We would have defaulted if we didn't refinance. But we did not just refinance. What we did was that we said, let's change our habits. Let's set up a sinking fund. We are getting additional revenues. So let's set up a sinking fund so that this habit of borrowing and not paying down, will stop.
Meanwhile, an economist with the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bokwing, says Ghana's economy cannot survive without borrowing. This comes as the country's total debt stock continues to soar. The minority alleges government has borrowed over 80 billion Ghana cedis in the last 2 years of office and have asked the government to show the projects that have been undertaken so far with the borrowed monies. But Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma says such a demand is mischievous. Speaking on Newsfile, Professor Bokwing said the mismatch between revenues and expenditures make it difficult for the country not to borrow.
Not all of them will constitute pure borrowing. There are variations in the debt stock as a result of exchange rates developments. So, for instance, if you are looking at the cedi version of the public debt, then you have to convert the external debt, assuming they are denominated in dollars. So, assuming 2 years ago, the cedi to the dollar was, let's say, 4.5, and you owed $25 billion. You're going to convert that to cedis. But assuming the dollar amount hasn't changed, but your cedi had depreciated to, let's say, 5.4, then you realize that the cedi amount today would have gone up, not because you have gone for additional loan, but because the cedi has what? Depreciated. Then there are also variations when it comes to when the loan that was contracted is being disbursed, for which reason it has been realized or actualized. But whether you look at it in terms of whether nominal or whatever, the debt stock had gone up significantly.
Okay.
So you can look at it from end to end, and say that if end of 2016, the debt stock was, let's say, 132 billion or 122 billion, and end of March 2019 is 198 billion, then it's a very simple matter of just looking at the difference. And then you can see that this is how much the debt has gone up. So in cedi terms, all of that will not constitute fresh borrowing. Part of that will be as a result of exchange rate variations. And that again, your debt stock would have gone up, but it doesn't mean you have taken
fresh loans.
Part of the loans that are also taken are for liability management, because the way we have managed our debt over the years is to do what we call rollover, because we don't really have active sinking fund. So when our debt mature, we don't have any buffer anywhere. So we take fresh debt to retire the maturing debt. Sometimes we run into rollover risk. We take fresh debt at higher cost to retire maturing debt at lower cost. We have had all of that over the years.
Away from the debt stock now, let's turn attention to some mining issues. Mining companies in the country are advocating government rather makes available about 30% of revenue received from their activities to be paid into the Minerals Development Fund. This according to President of the Chamber of Mines, Erica Subontin, will go a long way to support the rapid development of mining communities. There's more in this report.
For now, 20% of revenues derived from mining royalties and taxes by the end of each year goes into the Minerals Development Fund. The proceeds are used as a source of funding for development projects in mining communities. According to the president of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, the current 20% is inadequate for the intended purpose.
It will serve as a tool that will further empower the people in these areas to determine the nature of development they deserve. It is certainly the progressive way to go. The Chamber further wishes to appeal to the government to consider increasing the share of mineral revenue that goes into the MDF to 30% to substantially impact the development of these communities. Indeed, what we need to do to develop our mining communities is a deliberate strategy to ensure that revenues are judiciously applied and accounted for in a transparent manner.
The Chamber is also pressing on government to make use of modern technology to reduce the waiting time for regulatory requirements for the industry players.
Permit me to touch on a few challenges that require urgent attention from the states. Our perennial challenges with delays in the
Now, Deputy Minister of Energy, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, last week gave the assurance that prices of liquefied petroleum gas could be going down soon as domestic gas prices are being recalibrated. The Deputy Minister, who was speaking at the opening of the Ghana Mining and Energy Summit in Accra, gave the assurance. Let's recap exactly what Dr. Amin said.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ministry has been implementing interventions in the energy sector designed to mitigate cost and ensure efficiency. These interventions include renegotiation of power purchase agreements on cost of generation. And I have to say that the Honorable Minister is not here because he's chairing a committee that is negotiating with the IPPs to bring the cost of generation down. We are also recalibrating domestic gas prices. And I want to say also that just after here, I'm also heading to Aqua Safari to chair a committee negotiating with the oil and gas producers to ensure that we bring gas prices down. Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing all this because we know that cheaper sources of power is essential for growth of our economy. It's essential for your operation as mining companies, and it's essential if we have to accelerate the development of our country for the benefit of our people. Mr. Chairman, whilst we work to make energy affordable, we also recognize the continuous financial challenges of the sector exacerbated by the legacy debts that we inherited. We know that the energy industry needs to be backed by financial sustainability. To this effect, the government has initiated steps, including those that will prove painful but are necessary to achieve a strong financial health for the energy sector.
Indeed, some good words and assurance by the Deputy Energy Minister for the entire populace. But we would like to get some more education on this particular issue, and joining us on phone lines is energy expert Kwedu Poku to add his voice. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the marketplace.
I thank you, and good afternoon to your viewers.
All right. Now, so the Deputy Minister has given the assurance that, very soon prices of LPG could be going down, as it were, to help relieve customers of the excessive cost. Now, how can this be possible in a way?
Well, I would think that the government looking to review LPG prices down will look at the price build-up of LPG and maybe reduce the tax element of LPG. That is the only way I can see government trying to, if government wants to release the burden of the ordinary Ghanaian and reduce the cost of LPG. Aside that, I honestly don't see how that's going to happen. There is a lot of talk of the cylinder recirculation model which the government wants to introduce. Now, if you look at the detailed operation of how what is included in the cylinder recirculation model, I would even assume that the prices of LPG will go up a little bit more than it is now. I mean, government is all powerful. If they think that Ghanaians are paying more and they want to reduce the burden on Ghanaians, they could probably look at the tax component, because the tax component in every petroleum product in Ghana is quite huge. So government can look at the tax component, reduce the tax component, and that will give relief to Ghanaians.
Now, government has in the past stated that, reducing taxes is a no-go area, but if indeed government decides to look at other sources of purchasing LPG, is it a way, or in a way, could that realize the ambitions of government?
Well, if you say that you will not touch the tax, but you're going to look at alternative source or where you get the LPG from, the LPG itself is not an expensive product. It's like everything that we have in Ghana. Petroleum products, if you look at petroleum products around the world, in some countries it's very expensive, in some countries it is not. It depends on whichever government and what levies and taxes they put on petroleum products. It is a very direct way of taxing the citizenry. So you can get LPG from any source, whether from Equatorial Guinea, whether from locally from the Ghana gas, whether somebody even dash the LPG to you from Nigeria or from any other country. The bottom line is that when it gets to your point, you have hit a lot of taxes on the product. So the only way you can give Ghanaians the relief that you're talking about is the control you have. We can't really compete with market forces. We've heard of the problems going on in the Middle East of Iran and America and all the standoff that's going on, which is eating up petroleum prices. Those are things outside the realm of politicians. What we buy petroleum products for on the international market is not in the control of the politicians. Ghana Gas produces these LPG locally, and Ghana Gas have a lot of debt that they have to pay. So Ghana Gas also have to be profitable, so they have to produce these LPG at a profit so they can repay some of the costs they have. So that end of the cost, government does not control. What government controls is taxes. And I don't see how anybody can say that they are going to make something affordable when they don't look at the bit they control, but they want to go and look at the bit they don't control to make it affordable.
All right, many thanks for that input. Mr. Kojopuku is an energy expert. He's been sharing his thoughts on this particular issue where government has decided to reduce the cost of LPG very soon. Now, before we go, Ghana Tech Lab Organization has organized its maiden National Mobile App Development Hackathon. It's a contest where the youth pitch ideas to solve socio-economic problems using mobile applications. The program, funded by the World Bank and the Ministry of Communications under the e-Transform project, received entries from 200 applicants across the country. The executive director of the Ghana Tech Lab, Nelson Amo, noted that to be successful, a group must pitch an idea that confronts challenges in the economy.
50 finalists have been selected to undergo the final lap of the competition to become one of Ghana's best mobile application developers. This follows a rigorous and competitive training and presentation of technological ideas. The Deputy Minister of Communications, Vincent Soa-Odote, said government is ready to support technological ideas and to provide the right infrastructure for the purpose.
A lot of the products that we see, that we consume, the technology product we're consuming as a country, had their beginnings. I'm sure some of them may have even smaller beginnings than what we are seeing here. So far, we've witnessed pitches about our health, about crime, about financial problems and how to do credit score. And this is important. And so I'm really excited. And that's really built into the vision of Excellency the President of Ghana beyond aid. If we have to be able to be independent, truly independent, where we'll be able to have our future in our own hands, get such innovations and that support. We are accelerating the provision of not just SHS, I mean JHS. The government is on a program where we are providing the schools, JHS schools and SHS schools, across all the 275 constituencies with computers. I mean, we agree that it may not be enough, but that's something we started. Under the e-Transform program also, we are taking connectivity to some of the to the rural areas.
Some of the participants shared their experience with Joy Business.
We are focusing on the customer, and what we are giving to the customer is the mobile app. So the mobile app gives the customer advice on how to engage certain loans or certain credits to boost their score, to make them more creditworthy. So if a customer is more creditworthy, it gives the customer more access to these financial loans. And we spoke to a few people and we realized most of them were hammering on this bank issues. And some people were also complaining about going to the banks, opting for loans. It takes so long to get loans. And when they also get the loans, they are charged like so high, like the interest rates are so high because of some of these things. Because when the banks lose money, they in turn puts all those deficits on the loan interest, and you have to pay. You as the user have to pay. So when this app is launched or it comes to bear, we will be able to get a lot of these defaults. We will be able to reduce the default rate in the bank loans or financial institution loans that are lost.
The winning group will receive $10,000 to develop its unique mobile app and a 2-month incubation training. Fred, the host, reports for Joy Business.
And that'll be a wrap for this afternoon's edition of the Marketplace. For Joy News, for more news, do join myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji. Have a good afternoon.